So let's start. Okay, thank you. Good evening once again. I want to welcome you to this seminar on dealing with failure. My name is Dr. Maxwell Ubah. I'll be your pilot today as we go on an amazing journey. What am I going to cover today is first, what is failure and why it is important for us to understand failure. The second thing I want to cover is the two broad types of failure. The third thing that we'll cover is failure and the valley of death. Yes, there's what is called the valley of death. And the final part is how do we deal with failure. So that's what I'm going to cover today in the course of this presentation. But before I go into it, I'm Dr. Maxwell Ubah. I'm the CEO of a company called Strategy House, where I have a master's in leadership and strategy from London Business School. I've gone to the Wharton Executive Education to attend their program on strategic thinking and leadership for growth. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a strategy consultant. I've written books in that area, leadership strategies, success at work, and I've facilitated trainings in a lot of companies in Nigeria and some African countries like Ghana, Kenya, Zambia, Cameroon, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, and even in Dubai. So having said that, I think it's time for us to go into the presentation. So the first thing I want to address this evening is what is failure and why is it important, or why it is important. That's the first thing I would like to address this evening. And in order to go there, I would like to start with what I call mental models. Now, mental models are simply the explanation we give in order to make sense of the world. So everybody has a mental model of how life works. And what your mental model does is to keep the world simple enough for it to make sense to you. So you take the complexities of the world and you simplify it for you to make sense. And once it makes sense to you, it governs your behavior, it governs your actions, it governs even your attitude. So we have mental models concerning money, we have mental models concerning life, we have mental models concerning even marriage, education. Everybody has a mental model, which is the explanation that we give, our thought processes concerning situations. Now, this is what we were told growing up. This is the mental model a lot of us grew up with. We put in the effort, and success is guaranteed. For a lot of us here, we're told, for example, go to school, study hard, come out with good grades, and you will get a good job. That's the model that we were given. But you understand why this model is simple enough and can explain a lot of the things about life. We know that this model is not accurate. And that's the problem with mental models. They can explain some things about life, but they can't explain everything about life. So is it necessary for you to put effort? Yes. But sometimes you find out that even your best effort will not give you the desired result. So this model helps us to it makes the world predictable. You understand, where effort is equal to success. It helps us to plan for the future. So all the analysis that we do, the scenario planning that we create, statistics and all that is in that model of, okay, put the effort, and you get the results. And it gives us a sense of control, because you know that if you go to school and you come out with good grades, the likelihood that you will get a job is higher. That's what we were told. So that sense of control, when people go back to do a master's, is that sense of control, so that they can guarantee the opportunity of getting promotions in their workplace or getting a new job. This is the model a lot of us grew up with. And like Chike said, why were we not told about failure? This is the model we tell our kids. Go to school, come out with good grades, and the world is waiting for you. Go to school, come out with first class, and the world is at your feet. So it makes it simple enough for people to understand, and it makes people feel that they're in control of their future and their destiny. As wonderful as this model is, as beautiful as this model is, we know that this model is not correct. We've seen people who have gone to school, who came out with good grades and they did not get a job, who even came out with first class and they did not get a job. Why some other people who came out with 2-2 got a job, a better job, or even compared to the people who came out with, in quote, a 2-1 or a first class. So why this is the model we grew up with? This is how the world really works. It's not a straight line. It's not start, success, effort, and success. In the journey to success, in the journey to greatness, there will be detours, there will be contours, there will be speed bumps in that journey. So we start, this is our dreams, our goals. And while we're expecting to get to success, sometimes we experience disappointment. You've given your best, but reality, you're not accomplishing the goals that you want. Now, you also know that if you go back to that previous model, if that model explains everything about success, a lot of us will not be where we are right now, because we've given life our best. We've put in the effort, so to speak, but some of us are not where we think we should be. Because in that journey, that disappointment, and you all agree with me, a lot of things happen in the journey to greatness. Then you will start again and pick up yourself, and guess what? You feel there's a point of despair. You pick up yourself, and also you get to that point where you begin to doubt, is this for me? And if you refuse to give up, then you get to that point of success. I'm yet to see a man who truly succeeded without going through this journey of these bumps, this disappointment, discouragement, things did not work out as planned. Nobody actually built a multi-billion-dollar industry without having products that failed, you understand, initiative that did not work out the way they planned. It wasn't a straight line. It wasn't a straight journey. Anybody who told you or tells you that life operates in a straight line is not telling you the complete story about life. This is how life works. And a lot of us are not prepared for this model, this second model of life. That's why we're disappointed. That's why we get angry. That's why we quit, because we carry the model of the first part. You start, you put in the effort, you get the result you want. But success doesn't operate that way. And so I say, okay, those who win in life are those who plan for success, but also prepare adequately to deal with the failures along the way. They plan for success, but they prepare adequately to deal with the failures along the way. So if you take a car, for example, whatever car you want to take, I use the Rolls Royce here. As wonderful as this car is built to move, to take it to your destination. But there are things that are put in the car to tell you that life is not a straight line, it's not a smooth journey. Your seat belt, the brakes, the shock absorber, the airbags, all those things are put in place in the car just to tell you that it will not be a smooth ride. So your seatbelt prevents, you understand, accident, your brakes, your shock absorber, and God forbid you enter a major accident, then the airbag is there to protect. So even in the design of this car, the understanding of the car, the manufacturers, is that it is not a straight line. There will be bumps on the way. There will be things that will not go according to plan. You are not in control, in inverted comma, of everything that happens on the road. The government, there might be potholes, so you need your shock absorber. You need the brakes because you don't know whether somebody else is a crazy driver. That's the reason for this, that life, the journey to your destination is not a straight line. So this is the introduction that I'm starting with. So when we talk about failure, there are three things I would like to say as I talk about failure. What is failure, the reason for failure and all that. The three E's, I call it the three E's of understanding failure. The first E has to do with an event. And the starting point of failure is understanding that failure is an event. It's an event. That event could be a marital event, you understand? That event could be a financial event. That event could be an academic event. But failure is an event. And so we can actually excise failure, so to speak, or reduce it to an event. So it tells me that you can fail in some things in life. You can fail in a lot of things in life, but you cannot fail in everything in life. Because the man that has failed financially might have a wonderful marriage. The man that has failed financially might live long. So in terms of his health, you understand, in terms of some other areas of his life, you understand, he's doing well. But in a particular event, he didn't win the Grammys, he didn't win the Grand Slam, he didn't win the Champions League. There are footballers that have finished their careers and never won the Champions League. Would you call them a failure? Failure, first and foremost, is an event. That's the first thing that you need to understand. And if it's an event, the second E says that failure is external. So there's nothing like someone is a failure. Somebody failed in something doesn't make the person a failure because it's external. It's an event, it's external. Yes, there's the way you think, your attitude can affect your result, but failure is an event and is external. That's point number two. Point number two says you fail in something that is external. And if you fail in something that is external, you are not, as a person, a failure. It's an event, it's external, it's not a person. I think we need to understand that because people can fail in something doesn't necessarily mean that they are failures in life. And the number three for me is perhaps the most important E in understanding the concept of failure, and is the concept I call estimation. Now, failure is an event that is external and is based on people's estimation of your effort. Yeah, so it's based on people's estimation of your effort. You go for an interview, for example, and somebody feels that you did not meet that standard. It's an estimation of somebody else. So that's the three E's of understanding failure. The number one is an event, number two is external, and number three is someone's estimation. Now, the biggest problem is when the person's estimation now becomes your own estimation. Les Brown says that people's estimation of you, do I have it here? I don't have it here. People's estimation of you or people's assessment of you should not become a reality in your life. A reality in your life. It's an estimation of somebody else. And based on this three E's, I want to give you so this is the understanding of failure, that failure is an event, it's external, and it's someone else's estimation of you. I'll give you corporate examples today. I'll give you personal examples that will put the three E's, will put the definition of failure. But I want to ask, so far, so good? Are you following me? So far, so good?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to be sure that, yes, that you are still here. Thank you. So
yes, Dr. Max. Dr. Max, yes, we are following you. Gio here.
Okay, thank you. So you can mute now. You can mute so that we can thank you. So the next part is, so as an equation, I like in my mental model, I like using acronyms and I like using equations. And I said to myself, using an equation, how would I define failure? So in my book, my recent book, Success at Work, I talked about the concept of output and standard. Output is what I have done. You understand? Output is the effort. Output is what I have produced. Standard is what the world expects. And every time output is less than standard, what we have is failure. So as a simple definition, failure is when your output doesn't meet the standard of your world. So you write an exam, for example, and the lecturer feels that your output, your effort did not meet his or her standard. You bring a product and customers.
Corrections. Just for
sorry, can you mute, please? Can you mute? Thank you. Please, let's mute this is being recorded. Let's mute our microphone. You bring a product, for example, and your customers do not feel that the product meets their standard. That is failure as a simple definition. Now, because based on this, we'll go to the two broad types of failure. So if we take a simple definition that output is less than standard is failure, this brings me to what I call the two broad types, the two major types of failure that you experience in life. You can experience failure in somebody can experience failure in his marriage, in business, in your academics. But if you use output and standard, you'll find out that every failure can be classified into two using the output and standard. And since standard is the unit of measurement that determines whether we can classify it as success or failure, there are two types of standard. So the first type is called the standardized test, where there are objective scores, standardized test, objective scores, and you have an expert opinion here. So you write a test, you understand, you're given an algebraic equation, a formula or something. It's standardized. There's one answer that has just one answer. You understand? You need to arrive. It doesn't matter how you do it, but you need to arrive at the answer. And when you don't get the answer, then there's a problem here. But you see, I say this to a lot of people, that even standardized tests are not also very objective, and I'll come to that, which brings me to the second point. So in the first point of failure, it's your effort did not meet the standard. Either you didn't understand the question, you understand you were not prepared for it, you understand you had not researched, you didn't put in the right effort. So there's a standard of measurement and your effort did not meet up to that standard. What that says to you here is that you need to up your game. You understand? You're not supposed to blame life because there's a standard. But there's a second part, it's non-standardized test. And in this part is subjective. So even in these things we call standardized tests, I believe that the only standardized test is a multiple choice question, an MCQ that has four options and there's only one right answer. But if it is an essay, you know that even essays has biases. It depends on the mood of the examiner. It's not clearly objective. There's a subjective part to it. So one day I was facilitating a class, and I won't mention the person's name, but I was facilitating the class. And then this guy said that a lecturer at Maxwell Ubah, you understand, had a problem with the wife that morning. Let's assume the wife's name can be anything, Billy Keys, Jennifer, any name, you understand, had a problem with the wife that morning and went to mark Wayek that day. This was so many years ago. And as he was marking the script, he found a lady's question whose name was exactly the same name with the wife that he just had a problem with. And that he just transferred that anger and failed the person. Now that person will get the score and see a failure, but the person did not actually fail. It was somebody else's biases, prejudices, fears that was transferred to her. So this second part of failure is non-standardized. And in this second part, you can't tell yourself, what else could I have done differently? You can't explain it because right now it's not a function of your effort, it's a function of somebody's mood. So recently somebody told me a story of how he went for an interview, and this was a multinational that he went for that interview. He had got it, this was the final stage, the fourth phase of an interview in a multinational company. The interview went very well, but that day he wore a multicolored shirt on his suit, you understand, for that particular interview. And somebody there, after he finished and said, but you're coming for a senior role, you should know that you don't wear multicolored shirt on his suit. And that was the reason he did not get the job. It is somebody's biases, prejudices, and fears. It's not really your effort in this point. And a lot of things in life, we can have things. I see, okay, there's a hand being raised. Okay, I need to take, let me see. Mr. Benson, sir, okay, you want to ask a question or do I take it at the end?
Sorry, the question was not to interrupt you. I just raised my hand to wait for when there are the questions so that I don't interrupt what you're saying. So at any point you can take the question. Let me know.
I will. I'll call you, sir.
The process.
Okay, thank you. So you see that failures can be divided into two. Objective scores. You understand your effort did not. This objective is clear. It has nothing. There's just one answer to it, and you didn't meet it. And they are subjective. So take the interview one with somebody wearing a multicolored shirt. When I was in bank in those days, I worked in banks where you only wear white or blue shirts. But white or blue shirt doesn't determine whether you'll succeed or not as a banker. Some other banks wear multicolored shirt and they are doing well. So you have that part where somebody is looking at you and it's not seeing really your effort. The person is projecting he saw our fears, he saw our biases, he saw our prejudices onto you. And that person might be an expert, and the person says, no, you don't meet the test. You need to separate objective and subjective, standardized, non-standardized, and ask yourself. So because you see, in standardized, there's some things you can do. In non-standardized, there's not much you can do, except you find out from the person, so why did you say no? And this is where I want to ask you a question. This guy is called Jamie Siminoff. Jamie Siminoff is an inventor, and the wife was having challenges. People will ring, you understand, to drop something at the door, and the wife will be wondering, who is the person? I don't want to open a door to strangers. I would like to know who the person is before I open the door. And the guy now said, okay, supposing I do something, an invention that I can put outside of the door, where if somebody rings, connected to my wife's phone, she can see the person and she can speak to the person on the phone. And so the name of the company was called Doorbot then, even though it was later changed to Ring. And they went to Shark Tank and presented this invention to experts, to people who you think they are innovators. And they said, nice, but we don't see an opportunity here. Nice, we don't see an opportunity here. Only one person made him an offer and wanted to take a lot of the percentage of the company. And he felt that the offer wasn't too great, and he turned the offer down. Only one person offered him. Now, if you look at this person that went to Shark Tank, presented this idea, and 5 out of 6 people did not see the value of opportunity to invest in that, would you say that this person is a failure? That's question number 1, because they rejected him. Question number 2 is that would this failure be classified as under standardized or non-standardized? Let me ask the house and see what you will say. Anybody? Would you call this person if
Dr.
Okay.
Max?
Yes, Chike.
Using your 3 E's, the first E is the event. The guy went to talk about this new product, and 5 of 6 denied him, right?
Yes.
The second E, what is your second E again? Sorry.
It's external. It's external.
External. Yeah, so of course you had 5 of 6 people evaluating, very external. For him, internally, he had done a fantastic job. And then the third E, estimation, is the people's estimation. Now, 5 of 6 estimated him to be wrong. I mean, not wrong, but the product inadequate or no value per se. So arguably, using your 3 E's, you would say that it was a failure. Then in terms of whether it was objective or subjective, you know, that's really, that's an interesting question, because you can argue that it was objective in the sense that these guys are experts, so they use their knowledge, their experience, their expertise to adjudge this product, this potential innovative product. And looking at it objectively, they thought in their minds that this guy will succeed. However, you can also argue it's subjective, because again, they could have come with their biases. There are a lot of products that have initially been rejected, but turned out to be fantastic products over the years. So it's a good question. I would say maybe 50% subjective, 50% objective. That's
okay, thank you. Thank you. Itoha, one more Itoha. What would you say? Thank you, Chike, for that. Thank you. Itoha, you have your hand up.
It's myself. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to say that it's not standardized. Why did I say that? It's his invention. He saw the potentials in it. There was no standard like, let's set up something that you'd have to follow. Rather, he saw that there's a potential here, or there's something here because of his experiences. So he had the standard. So whether even 100 people rejected it, he is the one that set the standard, and he is the one that determines whether he is a failure or not. If he had quit, then for himself, he would have failed, because he saw it. It's not the other people who saw what he designed. That's how I want to look at it, basically.
Okay.
So it's not a failure.
Okay, thank you. Because of my time, I see some hands up. I think I need to move on because of my time. Tunji, can you just keep it short? Tunji, short. Okay, let me take Tunji, short.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. Well, with the little we know about Shark Tanks, there are procedures, there are criteria for the judges to assess whatever you are bringing on board. So I'm sure every of the participants that are invited to, you must have done maybe whether a proof of concept, whether it doesn't meet the criteria set. So in that regard, I would say it's very objective based on the set criteria for him to have come that far to appear before.
Okay.
That would be my point.
Okay. And Tunji, it's your opinion. Thank you for that. But let me tell you, let's continue the story. So I know for a lot of us would have felt dejected and all that, where you go there hoping for an seed money, seed capital into your business, and the expert, so to speak, did not see. They spoke well about it, but they felt that there was not a market for it. So how do you know there's not a market? I can't tell. Cut the long story short, the guy went back, continued this work, went to the bank gave him a loan, and this company just boomed. When I mean boomed, that I think 3 or 5 years afterwards, thereabout, Amazon paid over $1 billion to buy this particular invention from him. So the product that they did not see a market value, you understand, which is, and for me, that is not that expert opinion was obviously very wrong. Now, the product that they did not see a market value for was a product that boomed, and Amazon bought it for over, and the guy today was invited back to Shark Tank to come and see it as an investor. And I said he will look back and say, thank God they didn't even see the value, because today is a billionaire based on that. So what's the lesson here? That sometimes even so-called experts can be wrong. And this is where I had that quote on Les Brown, that other people's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. Other people's opinion, it doesn't matter whether they call themselves expert, whether they say you cannot make it, whether they say this was not good enough, other people's opinion of you. I was told the story of how FedEx started. The concept that became FedEx was the concept he wrote as a project paper to his lecturer. And the lecturer said that this project will not work, you understand? And he says you should do another project. He said he's not going to do another project. Eventually, the lecturer said the best I can give you was a C, because this project will not work. He thanked the lecturer and he says, I'm not going to change the concept. Today, what the lecturer felt would not work was something that has given birth to a multi-billion-dollar industry. So sometimes even what you call standardized are usually a lot subjective, and you need to understand that. Sometimes there are things that you call standardized that are supposed to be objective, but because of the limitation of the human mind and the human spirit and whatever you want to call it, they don't know the future, they don't know tomorrow. And so you need to be careful before you take expert opinion. So let's come to the third part, failure and the value of that. Okay, but at this point, I'd like to take, because this is my former boss. And when I mean my boss, when I was in banking, he was a boss to me. He was a role model and mentor, Mr. Benson. Sir, let me take your question. I won't wait for you to the end, because I was reporting to him in one of the banks I work under, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Maxwell. You are my teacher in this session, so the roles can reverse. So the roles cannot reverse. But some of the opinion I wanted to raise, you had talked about in some of the things you said after I'd raised my hand, and in the question in the example that you raised. I seem to be of a different school of thought, that all failures are subjective. All, not some. And I'll tell you why.
You believe that all failures are subjective, sir?
All, yes.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to raise my hand, because it was completely a bit out of the assertions of the teaching. Because I am convinced that failures are socially and personally induced. That's why and you gave examples that show that all subjective. And the society determines what is success and what is failure. And the individual accepts what is success and what is failure. The individual actually sets the goals for themselves on which they measure their success and failure. It could be peer group driven, it could be societally driven, it could be internally driven. So if your goal in the class, let's say the academic side, is to always come first. If you score 99 and come second, somebody else scores 100 or two other people score 100, you will count yourself as a failure in that particular subject. The 99 doesn't really matter to you because you set a goal for yourself and that your subjective position defines your failure or your success. Then the society pushes us in different directions. If you go to Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, the success of Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart, in today's society, would Okonkwo have been a success? The answer is no. Is that society that determined that Okonkwo was a success? The success, the one the world raised as a success today using social media and all, Mark Zuckerberg might not be a success if he's in my village. Because that big yam farmer in my village might be the most successful individual there. The man that quotes the highest proverbs in the local meeting might be the biggest success in that village. The man who is the big wrestler that defeats everybody, that has no cash in his pockets, might be the biggest success in another society.
Okay.
So as we go around, academic success, corporate success, life success, they are mostly subjective and defined by our measurement within our mind and within the society that we dwell. Today, if you live in Onitsha, just example, not deriding any city. If you live in Onitsha or live in Owerri or live in maybe in the capital of Benue State, that's or let me take Makurdi.
Okay.
If you are the most successful businessman in Makurdi or in Onitsha or in Owerri, and you relocate to Lagos, the first impact you have is to start feeling like a failure.
Okay, I get your point.
The society of Lagos will swallow you completely.
I get your point.
You define your success and your failure. And
I get your
around the same way with a Nigerian that relocates to Canada and begins to check all that he acquired that were successes before and gets into another society where the society's measurement of success and failure differ. He begins to also redefine his own success and failure.
Okay, thank you.
I completely believe that all failure definitions are subjective.
Okay, I think the beauty of life, you understand, is that opportunity for us to hold a mental model that works for us. When I mean objective is simply in the context of, and I said that the only true objective standard is an MCQ test. And so somebody writes an MCQ and doesn't meet that standard. That means that the person might have failed that exam, doesn't make the person a failure, because the person can be a fantastic musician, the person can be a fantastic footballer or something. We're just using that as, and we said that a big part of even what we call objective is subjective point. So your opinion is all is subjective. It's fine, boss. So can I proceed?
No,
if you don't mind, boss?
I'm just bringing an alternative opinion for all of us.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm not debating it, so that I can proceed.
As the parameter. Before the NCQ test, there were very intelligent and successful people in my village before I was born. They never went through those tests. And they still refer to their grandchildren as grandchildren of very successful men.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's okay, sir. I think for me here, I get the point. You understand? The definition of success can be varied depending on individual, locality, society,
exactly,
and all that. So I get your point. I need to, because of time, because of so the next 2 points deals with failure and the value of that. So thank you for that opinion and failure, to how to deal with failure. So let me go to failure and the value of debt. Now, if you go back to this journey that we started with, we said that you understand there's disappointment, you understand, you see that. Now, this particular point, at this low ebb of your life, when things are not working, is what I call the value of debt. You understand? That's the value of debt. And the value of debt, can I say this to you, doesn't, and I'll explain it as I move on, doesn't happen externally. It's not because you lost money that you enter the value of debt. No, and I'll explain it as I move on. What happened is that disappointment that you experience begins to birth doubt. You begin to question, am I going to succeed? Am I going to succeed? Is this meant for me? Am I called to be a musician? Am I called to be a footballer? Am I called to be whatever? Is business meant for me? And when you get to the point where you say, I don't think that this is meant for me, at that point, when you make that decision to abandon it, the valley of death has swallowed that dream. You understand? That's the valley of death. It has swallowed that dream. When you say to yourself, I'm not going to do this again, you understand? At that point, you are in the valley of death, you understand? And in the valley of death, there's doubt, there's despair, there's disappointment, there's despondency, whatever you want to call it. But it only happens where you say to yourself, I quit. As soon as you get to that point where you say, I quit, I abandon, I'm not going to pursue this, then that is the valley of death for that particular dream, for that particular individual. And when people get to that valley, certain things happen. So let's look at the effects of failure. So Chike talked about the emotions. The first thing that failure does is that it has a big impact on our emotions. A big impact, anger, sadness, depression, you understand, whatever you want to call it. It is a big impact of failure on our emotions, you understand. How you feel when you've written an exam and somebody says, not good enough. Definitely you feel sad, effort wasted, everything that you've done. There's a big impact on our emotions. So this is big, you understand. There's a second part of failure on your motivation. While your emotion is how you feel, your motivation is, do I want to continue on this project again? You understand? So failure would nip your motivation, would attack your motivation, would tell you that it's not worth pursuing. That's motivation. Do I want to continue this? Do I want to continue this business? Do I want to continue in this marriage, for example? Do I want to continue in, you understand, I have a difficult, do I want to, that motivation, that desire to want to continue, the want to, this fire in your belly. Failure has a way of just dousing and quenching that fire in your belly. But I think for me, the biggest danger of failure is your perspective. The biggest danger of failure is your perspective. Now, when people fail and they've got into the valley of death, that they've abandoned that, you understand, they become cynical about life. They give up and they now begin to say things like, life doesn't work. You can't succeed in this environment, or forget it, nobody, you understand, they become cynical. And once you get to that point where your mental model now is that success is impossible because of the failures that you've experienced. For me, that is the biggest. How you begin to see life. So people have started business that failed, then they bounce back, they failed, they bounce back, they failed. Let me give you a typical example. And this was from a book that I read. A man who, I think I have the books, one of the book here, a man who bought an invention, and he bought an invention. This is a man, PhD lecturer in a particular university. You know, in America, they do tenure, not Nigeria, where you understand, they do tenure. You need, once you become a tenured professor, you are there for life. And if you don't make tenure, they flip you out. And this guy, it was the day for his tenure board, and he wasn't prepared very well, even though he bought an invention. Guess what happened? Guess what happened? He went there, the presentation did not go very well. And you know what he did? He quit. He abandoned it. And when he left that university, he sent his materials to some of his colleagues that reached out to him and said, this research that you did, can we see that? And he sent the materials to them, and the colleagues took those materials. Can I say this to you? That material, his invention, gave his colleagues a Nobel Prize. His invention gave his colleagues a Nobel Prize. But because he gave up and changed his perspective, and because he failed at that tenure board, instead of maybe going to another university, getting himself and the rest, he just quit. And I think the last time he said whether he was working in a car dealership or something, but that invention that he originated, that he presented, that maybe he didn't present it very well, that he gave his colleagues who fine-tuned it, you understand, won them a Nobel Prize, simply because of P, which is your perspective. Never get to that point in your life where you begin to conclude that it's either impossible, or you conclude that I cannot succeed, or you conclude that the people that are succeeding must be doing something unethical, illegal. Once you get to that point, failure has actually changed your perspective, and you are in the valley of death and abandonment. So for time's sake, because of this, so the last point now is, how do we deal with failure? I'll do this in 10 minutes. How do we deal with failure? So we started by talking about what is failure, and we use the 3 E's. It's an event that is external and is based on the estimation of people, you understand? And we've given so many examples of people who estimated and felt that it was wrong, and it turned out to be well. And sometimes you can even learn from the estimation. I say, okay, maybe I need to work hard. Why is it important? Because life is not a straight line. We'll meet, will meet the challenges of life. We talked about two types of failure, that there's failure based on maybe a standard MCQ test. That's the only one that is standardized. And that's what I mentioned. Maybe you write an exam and you fail, but almost everything, even musician, what makes one musician better than the other? What makes one author better than the other? There's really no standard. So I have some books here that they are called bestsellers. And I bought the book and I read the book. I said, how did this book make a bestseller list? So a lot of things in life are subjective, even though there should be standard. If you're writing a book, you shouldn't have typos, you shouldn't have grammatical errors. I know that. That's the basic standard, but a lot of other things are subjective, and we don't allow that to define us. We talk about failure and the value of death, that in that valley is where despair, disappointment, despondency, that happens. But that dream only dies when you give up on that dream. And that's a function of how you interpret it. It only dies when you give up. Now, the last part is, how do we deal with failure? So there are like 6, 7, 8, 9 points I just want to quickly run through. Number one here is to recognize that failure is inevitable. We started that with the mental model. You understand that saying that life is not a straight line. If failure is inevitable, this simply means that you would fail at one point or the other in your life. If you've not failed now, you will fail. You will fail at one point. You will fail at something in your life. And if you continue that failure being inevitable, it means that everybody will fail at something. Can you people hear me? Because somebody is talking about audio. Okay, but you can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, thank you. So
yes, we can hear you. Dr. Max, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You will fail at something. You will fail at something. And if it's inevitable, everybody would fail at something. The man that is a billionaire might be struggling in his marriage. The man that people will fail at something. So pointer number one says it's inevitable. If it's inevitable, it is not a crime or a shame to fail. Because sometimes what happens is that when we fail, we hide ourselves. We play the ostrich. We think that the world is against us. Everybody else is looking at us. Who has not failed in one area or the other in his or her life? I think this is like, who that is without sin, let him cast the first stone. That there will be somebody in one area or the other of your life, there will be failure. It can be financial. You might be doing well academically, but financially you're struggling, business is struggling. People will fail in one area or the other of their life. It's inevitable. And if it's inevitable, you need to brace up for your brace. Yes, prepare, do your best, you understand, but understand that even your best, like we said, there's some subjective stuff that you would never, that is beyond your control. That's point number one. Point number two says, since it's inevitable and it's not a shame to fail, it says here, don't deny or dismiss the pain. Now, it's painful to fail. And the biggest point is because of expectations. So you've gone for an interview, especially if you've got into the final phase and you're expecting that job, or you understand, you've written the exam, you thought they were going to call you. So your expectations, you've released your expectation, you're hopeful, and your hope has been dashed. You feel pain. I don't get to that point where you deny it doesn't matter. No, it does. You understand? Because once you deny it, you tend to suppress it. You understand? And don't dismiss it. I am disappointed, and it can be legitimate. Guys, I feel pain. I was looking forward to it. I thought that this was going to, you understand, work, but it didn't work out as planned. People who manage failure well, they accept their pain and they get in touch with their pain. I am hurting. This is quite painful. This is quite disappointing. Because if you can label your pain and address it, it will help you in other things as we move on. So don't deny or dismiss it. Don't suppress it. Because if you suppress it, when we get to number 4, you'll see what will happen in number 4. Accept your pain, label it. Tell yourself that I was really looking forward to this business working, and the thing really disappointed me. I was looking forward to this interview process or traveling or something, whatever it is, and I'm really disappointed. It's normal for you to be disappointed. You understand? And don't become a macho man and say it's nothing, but deep within you are hurting. Because if you don't expose a wound first to dress it, then something will happen to the wound and it will just destroy you. Point number 3 is you need to challenge limiting thoughts. Now, when you fail, remember that valley of the shadow, valley of death, where you get to that point of doubt. You begin to doubt yourself, your motivation, life. Does life really work? You understand, life is not fair. People don't like me. I don't think this is made for me. Those limiting thoughts. Now, what limiting thoughts what they do is that they begin to internalize failure. You understand? So rather than failure being an event that is external, it becomes a person that is internal. And people now begin to look at, because you failed in one area, it means that you will not succeed in other areas of your life. Challenge limiting thoughts and beliefs. So that's pointer number 3. Challenge it. Challenge it, whether it's marital failure, whether it's financial, challenge those thoughts. It's the biggest. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is. If you begin to think that life, I can't succeed any longer, Nigeria is impossible for you to succeed. And every day I see people, why is it impossible? People are relocated, people are coming to Nigeria, people are opening fertilizer plant and the rest in the same Nigeria that people say is the limiting thought. As you think, you understand, as you think, so you will become. So you need to challenge the thoughts. Now, failure is in an event. It looks as if there's something from that event. How we interpret the event now will determine a lot of things that happens to us in our life. For time's sake, number 4 is important because of pain, which is number 2. Because of number 3, the limiting thoughts. People have coping strategies, and this is negative coping strategies. Now, all of this coping strategy is to make you happy or to release what they'll call dopamine, but some of them can become addictive and they're negative over time. So number 1 is food. Sometimes when people fail or when they're going through some stress in their life, they start eating and they become obese. Number 2, they start drinking. You understand? They start smoking. They take substance abuse, or they start womanizing, committing adultery and all that. Now, every one of this is to heal that pain, the wound, as a result of failure. But guess what? When you see yourself slipping into this mode, you understand, know that you are using negative coping strategies to deal with your pain. And so you need to understand, hey, stop. When you see yourself changing your clique of friends and things they are trying to do is to drink, to smoke and all that, you know that you're actually dealing with pain, but you're dealing with pain in the wrong way. It will give you temporary relief, but guess what? It will compound your problem over time. So number 5 now says you need to draw inspiration and support from others. So inspiration is from people who failed and have succeeded. Support can be from your family, from your friends, can even be a therapist that support. So it's not a crime to say, I think I need to see a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. You understand? It's not a crime. So let me talk about inspiration here. Some of you will know this company. This company is called RMX. I think it started in 1982. RMX. And you know why I know the company? I was reading a book on Harvard, you understand? And I saw this case because this company has delivered things for me from Amazon. RMS was started in Jordan, 1982. 1984, RMS, the CEO went to a Seattle-based freight company and begged to make a pitch and a presentation to buy 50% of RMX for $100,000. 2 years after they started, 50%, and they said to them, we are not looking at the Middle East, we don't think there's potential in the Middle East and all that. We are not going to invest 50% to buy invest $100,000 to buy 50% of your company. But the point, I said, okay, even if you're not buying my company, if you have anything in the Middle East, can I be your partner in the Middle East? They say, yes, we have something, we can make you our partner, but we're not buying. Guess what? 12 years after, the company who turned down a chance to take 50% at $100,000, the same company paid $2 million to take 9% of the company 12 years after. So looking back, it was that failure was a blessing in disguise. 12 years after, from 50% for $100,000 to 9% for $2 million. Cut the long story short, by 2010, RMS was valued at $600 million. Today, the company is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but somebody did not see the value at the initial stage when they presented it for 50% at $100,000. We could talk about the guy who was rejected by Facebook, Brian Acton, that decided that started WhatsApp and was sold WhatsApp with for almost 16 or $19 billion to Facebook. Or is it even personal, Mark Vijusik, who was born without arm and leg, and you could, from a family personal standpoint, you can say, wow, this looks from societal standpoint, you can define that this is failure. But this guy today is a successful man in every way. So this point number 5 says, draw inspiration that your biggest challenges are not unique. somebody somewhere is facing, you understand what you're going through and will come out triumphant. So rather than crucify yourself, you need to ask yourself, which is pointer number 6, find the root cause. Why did I fail? So when you draw inspiration, you need to find the root cause. Why did I fail? And you understand, in this point, yes, why we want to blame society, you want to blame friends, you want to blame others. I think you need to also do introspection and ask yourself, did you do what you were supposed to do? And you need to accept a level of responsibility. So for example, you give somebody money and the person cheated you and ran with the money. Don't blame the person. You understand? Did you do your due diligence? You understand? Did you investigate? That's the root cause. So why did I fail? Is it that I didn't give the right effort, or I didn't give the right effort, or it was somebody else that is subjective? But before you say it's subjective, you need to ask yourself, did I do everything I'm supposed to have done under the given circumstance? Only when you say, I can't find where I have done everything I think I have done, that you say, okay, maybe there's something external. But I tell people, don't blame the external factor first without looking at inwardly and ask yourself. And this brings me to pointer number 7. Every failure, according to, I'm trying to remember his name, says it has a seed of benefit. The man that wrote Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, that every failure has a corresponding seed of advantage, of benefit. So failure can become the next best thing to you. And point number 7 says, what lessons can I learn? That's point number 7. So what's the lesson here? I say to my friends, I say to people, you are not a failure if you can learn something from that event. You understand? At least you'd have developed wisdom. And Bill Gates says it's important to celebrate success, but it's far more important to heed the lessons of failure. And for me, so why we need to celebrate success, let's heed the lessons. So what are the lessons? So that failure is life actually giving you feedback. And that feedback can come to your effort, your strategy, or come to so many other things. You didn't understand the political environment. Oh, so it's time for me to understand political environment. Before you say no to an investment, take a second look, like all the examples I have given you. Now that's lessons. What lessons can I learn? Every failure. So let me give you an example here. Let me personalize it. So many years ago, I was sitting down in the office and a colleague of mine asked me, would you like to change job? I said, well, I'm happy here, but if there's an opportunity, I can always explore the opportunity. And he says, okay, let me just arrange a quick meeting. This was when I was in banking so many years ago. And they arranged a quick meeting and I went there unprepared. You know, it was just not normal day, just go and have a first chat. I went there, first time in my life, I went there unprepared. And the guy asked me certain questions, you understand, of what is happening in the global environment with respect to the industry that I belong. And I didn't have the answer off the top of my head. And I left there unprepared. And I said to myself, when I left there, that was failure in quote. But I said to myself, I made a decision. Never again would I have an opportunity to go for an interview, go for a presentation and not be fully prepared. Never again. That was for me the biggest lesson I learned. And today as a consultant, to prepare for 1 hour, I put 6 hours, I put 7 hours, I put 15 hours. Why do I put so much time? Why do I read and research? Simply because that lesson, Maxwell, I will never stand before an individual or before a group and not be fully prepared. This is like almost 15, 17 years after. But that lesson for me, never go stand before somebody else without being prepared, has been for me a driving force. And that failure has been a blessing for me in disguise, because so many years later, the person who felt, oh, I wasn't prepared, so many years later has sat in my class, not once, not twice, not 3 times, taking notes, wondering where is this guy coming from. In my mind, I said, I hope you still remember that I was the person that was not prepared then. And that's the lesson that failure does, that every failure can become a seed that makes you a better person. If I didn't learn that lesson today, learn that lesson so many years ago, maybe it won't make me a better facilitator, consultant. Wow, it's almost 8 I need to earn. I saw this online, and for me, it's a very beautiful definition of what it means to fail. So I give credit to the guy, socialpost.org. He says that fail means first attempt in learning. So you are not a failure if you learn something from that event. You only, in quote, a failure if you fail to learn something. If you can extract a lesson from that experience that makes you a better person. You are not a failure. And sometimes that thing makes you, it shapes your life, it changes your life. Point number 8, for time's sake, is draw a new plan of attack. Now, what failure does is 2 things. It can either tell you persevere, or it can tell you to pivot. Persevere means that stay here, you understand, stay here, conditions will change. Pivot means that, hey guys, I think I need to start something, change my strategy, start something different, but I'm not going to give up on my dream. So we tell people, don't give up on your goal, but you can change your strategy on the route to your goal. And so that's a new plan of attack. That new plan of attack might be in new products, in new business, in new ideas, whatever it is. But as long as you're in the arena, as long as you're in the game, you understand, as long as you will not quit, then you are not a failure. Point number 9, which is the last point for me, is when you restart, you need to celebrate progress milestones. It is sometimes you've lost something that you want to get it back all means. No, see what happens. Failure affects your emotions. We talked about that. There's sadness, there's depression, and the rest. And when you restart, for every progress that you make, celebrate it. Because once you celebrate it, it releases the positive hormones that deals with the negative aspect of that point. And number 3, point number 4 that we mentioned. And so people who succeed, they now begin to pace themselves, and they celebrate milestones on the way. This is the last point. And I want to leave you with what Theodore Roosevelt said. He said, far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in a great tree light that knows not victory or defeat. It's on this point. My name is Dr. Maxwell Ubah. I would like to thank you for coming. You understand, I'll take questions at the end now. So if you have any question at this point, I'll stop the recording and I will take the questions. Yeah.